Sorry, just getting notes pulled forward since I
Hey, that's
box.
exactly what I'm doing. I'm getting notes in front of me.
I know I mentioned it last time, but the whole FaceTime box popping up just still throws me off.
I do not like it. Here's what's even worse. It's just like, guys, I'm not at the, I'm not ready to, like the cursing is in my head already, but it's not ready to come out. But sometimes, so, uh, doesn't matter what the proportions are, but I have audio hijack in front of me so that I can see that things like it. I want to see the waveform. I want to see that the stream is moving because I want to make sure that something hasn't. I keep an eye on it so that I know if something happens to the local recording, I can at least oh hey, notice it pretty sooner rather than later. And then obviously I have no control over whether or not the FaceTime audio box is on the top right. It's not a box, it's a squircle. And then I have my notes on screen as well because I'm looking at the notes. And I, every once in a while, prior to Tahoe, there was no additional window for FaceTime. But there is a window that stays open the entire time. And if you bring it to the front, the camera turns on. And I'm looking at myself talking in this low resolution image because the FaceTime camera, I think that's what they call it on the computer, is a low resolution camera. But if I put both of my windows in front of it, it's still on. Camera's still on. I don't know why. Yeah, but sometimes that the window with the video will pop up in front of audio hijack and notes.
I don't normally have that part happen, surprisingly enough.
The popping in front of you?
Yeah. Like once I actually bring everything else forward, it normally stays in the background. But I've got a separate webcam that I used a long time ago that I haven't used in forever, but it defaults to that when FaceTime comes up. So I wonder if because it's not plugged in and so it's not an active camera, that's why I'm not getting that behavior.
Well, thankfully the camera went away, or the camera turned off.
Anyway, I noticed there was some follow-up.
I was just gonna. I wanted to say, you corrected me last week when I mentioned. Well, I was going to say one more thing. I keep checking daily for iOS 26.2 and Tahoe 26.2 to be released.
What specifically? Like, do you know there's a certain fix, or you're just hoping that it's going to address something?
I'm just hoping that it's going to address.
I wasn't sure if there was a known from, like beta testing and all, this is coming in 26.2 that you were watching for, or if it was just hoping.
I know there's some, I don't remember what they are, but I remember thinking, oh, that seems cool. And it's just just some refinements, and we'll come back to this. Because I sent you a message, I never got a response from you, so I'm gonna try to talk about it but I'll do the James Bond follow up because it's short.
Oh, did I missed a message from you then? Apparently,
I sent an article and I said this could be good, but my James Bond follow up was that you corrected me when I said something about him using a Nokia phone to control his BMW, which I think was a 5 Series. In Tomorrow Never Dies. And you said, no, it was Sony Ericsson. And you'd mentioned that there was basically, there was product placement that they'd paid for. And,
sorry, I tried to derail you.
No, that's okay. But I remembered noticing that he had a Sony Ericsson phone in Casino Royale. And it was, I had made the connection. Well, yeah, because, Sony Pictures was the distributor. And, I noticed that all in the movie The Holiday with starring Jack Black and supporting actors Cameron Diaz, Kate Winslet, and Jude Law, they all use Sony products. like Sony Vaio. I take that back. There was somebody that had a BlackBerry, but it was also Sony Pictures, and yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to make mention of that. It was in my because it was in my head.
Yeah, I guess I just didn't really distinguish the thought between like Sony being a distributor, and so of course they were going to do some advertising as opposed to just calling it paid placement in general.
Yeah,
similar to Apple using iPhones.
Right, but see, Sony was not the distributor for Tomorrow Never Dies, so I think it was a placement there.
Probably.
And I don't know if I don't know if we've talked about this, if you've heard this from, but I think Gruber's mentioned it certainly in the talk show. But it's there's kind of a thing where if a person doesn't have an iPhone, they're a bad guy. So if they have another brand of phone, and I was like, that could be a bit of a spoiler if they show it before you know they're a bad guy. So I think they need to be careful about that.
Yeah, we've made reference to it, I know, in talking about different things on Apple TV.
I watch for it now, but I don't know that I've had anything spoiled by it.
I wouldn't say that I watch for it, but I just kind of assume, I guess, that nobody's going to be quite that dumb. I mean, certainly it happens, but I would hope that if that's something that you're consciously doing throughout shows, that you make sure it's not something that's shown before the story has progressed to the point that the user would, or viewer would figure it out.
You don't want somebody the phone that they have to be indicative of a spoiler.
Yeah.
And I think bad guy is probably the wrong term. Probably the right term would be antagonist, because in the rule of law, you could see now my FaceTime window just popped up. Camera didn't turn on. It says power saver. Click FaceTime to resume, and it is now. It's still behind my notes, the notes application. So the way I have it organized, audio hijack and notes take up the screen, and I can't see the FaceTime window at all. And it's now it has pushed audio hijack into the background, and notes is still in the foreground.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm not cool with that. So, but you've never had that?
No, so far I haven't.
Okay. Well, that's okay.
But yes, as far as like antagonist, protagonist, you could technically have the other relationships too.
Yeah, I was just going to say Andrew Cooper in Your Friends and Neighbors is, from the point of view of the rule of law, a bad guy because he steals from his friends and neighbors. But he certainly has an iPhone, and he is the protagonist. And honestly, none of us feel bad about it because it's not a Robin Hood kind of thing because he's not distributing the money; he's keeping it for himself. But I don't feel bad for the rich people getting.
Well, they go to great pains to make you aware of how kind of egregiously rich they are. Not
even just that, but also just, there's some amount of moral compromises that the people he steals from that make us feel okay with him stealing from them.
Fair enough.
So, because I don't think it's enough to be just filthy rich.
Speaking of Robin Hood in general, not to take us off of on a tangent, I don't know first how often you pay attention to Robin Hood stories, but did you see that MGM was doing an original show on the Robin Hood series?
I have been a longtime fan of Robin Hood. It started with Disney, and if given the opportunity, I might try to argue that it's the best telling of Robin Hood. But I loved it when I had these books and the drawings, and I like the time period because I've always liked medieval I don't even know if medieval is the right term.
It's borderline medieval transition to Renaissance, but yeah, it all kind of classifies.
Well, and that's the thing where it's like it's an amorphous nebula of swords and arrows and chainmail, and I know that that's not accurate. Like I'm aware, I know enough that it's like if you put chainmail on somebody, it's like, oh, that's the wrong period for chainmail. They didn't have chainmail back then. I know that's a thing. Like, I couldn't tell you what was. I couldn't pick out like this is from 100 or 1000 CE. This is from 1100. This is from, the 12th century. I couldn't, for me, it like even when you get to Renaissance, I was like, yeah, it's from the medieval times. I don't know, but it's long ago enough and blends enough, and I've been exposed to a lot of historically inaccurate depictions of these things that I couldn't tell you. But I like the idea of like swords and bows and arrows and yeah.
Me too. So did you see that MGM was doing?
No, I didn't see that, but I'd be interested.
The first episode is free to watch on Amazon Prime. I haven't seen where you can access it other than, I think Paramount is who owns MGM Plus, or maybe MGM Plus is its own streaming service. I don't know. I think look MGM very close.
Plus is its own service.
Yeah, I didn't look very close because I'm not paying for another streaming service like that. It's not going to happen. And I haven't looked to see if there was a distribution outlet like via iTunes or something once the season ends. But I did watch the first episode, and I don't know for sure what I think of it from just the first episode. I mean, it was enjoyable enough to want to watch the next and kind of see where it goes. But it's a different enough setup and telling from everything else that I've seen that it's interesting. So it's certainly worth adding it to the list. It's just called Robin Hood.
I was looking for it because I use Just Watch, and it usually tells you all the places that you can get it. But here, 2025.
Yeah, it's very recent.
Just MGM Plus.
And I would assume that will change as the season's finished, because I think it's in the process of being released, maybe? I don't know. It might have all been released.
I would have expected that you'd be able to buy it on iTunes, but no, it doesn't show that you can. Interesting.
And that's why I think it's probably coming. Like, I don't know if... I didn't dig into it enough to see if they had released all the episodes yet or what. I think it's in the process of being fleshed out, because I think the most recent episode is slated for release on the 14th. Now, whether that's the end of the season or partway through or what, like it's very much a current thing. And so I would expect next year other distribution options might open up.
What is your take on the week after week release, the weekly release, or dropping the whole thing at once?
I don't have overly strong opinions between the two, depending on what it is. I've enjoyed the being current and talking about certain shows with certain groups of people as they're released. So the social aspect of enjoying them as it's dropped weekly. But I've also really enjoyed being able to just pull up a series and watch whatever season I want over the course of a weekend. So it depends. It depends a lot.
Yeah, I do like the social aspect of it. So I've been watching Stranger Things, and I don't think that you've even started that yet. Am I?
Nope, haven't seen a single episode.
Oh man, I think I wasn't. I wasn't 100. I never really sat and watched it and thought, oh, you would enjoy this. But now I've been rewatching it with my son. And there's a lot of things that and it's not for the first 3 seasons, it's not the second time I'm watching it. Like, this is like the third or the fourth time that I'm watching any of these seasons, and they're not long. They're 8 episodes, or like 8 Like there's some seasons that are 9 episodes, so it's not long. By the time they get to the 4th season, some of the episodes are over 2. Like there's the finale is I think 2 hours and 40 minutes, so it's longer than most feature length movies. Simply because it's like, I mean, they have. I think Netflix has given them, whatever you want to do, you can do it. And well, the first thing I'll say is excellent storytelling. It's all the same stuff, relationships, love. There's nothing new or groundbreaking, but they're doing an excellent job in how they tell a story, and the details around it are really interesting. And you want to know, and you get in. I mean, as with any show, you get invested in the characters and them living their lives. It's like my life is not vastly different than my dad's life and practically anyone else who lives in our culture. So it's not anything groundbreaking in that sense, and it's just been an interesting story, and they've just told it so well. It's Breaking Bad level good. They have lots of great Easter eggs, but the thing that really, this watch that I've been doing with my son, the thing that I've really noticed this time around is it's a period piece. It starts in 1983, and each season is second season is 84, third season is 85, and so forth. And the thing that is really good about it is how much homage they pay to the 80s and 80s pop culture without being derivative. One of the characters I was watching it for the first time, I was like, it's Han Solo. It's like, it is all of the best aspects of Han Solo. And then it's like, wow, they did this great homage to E.T. without making it feel like E.T. They did this great homage to Back to the Future. Like really and truly, and it's spread out here and there, and it's been one of the most delightful shows that I've watched.
I certainly heard enough good things about it that it's been on the list for a bit. I doubt it will be one that I wait and try to coordinate watching with Emily, just because if so, we'll probably never get to it at this point.
Does Emily like horror movies?
No.
Because season 4 is basically A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Interesting. Okay.
It is, again, they make it different and special enough or unique enough that it doesn't feel derivative, but also paying like to the and this is not a spoiler, but to the tune that Robert Englund has a cameo.
Nice.
And because like when I'm watching it, I'm thinking this character kind of reminds me of like, how can this not be A Nightmare on Elm Street? And it's like watching it a second, it's the only one that I am watching the second time, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's absolutely. And I guess the reason why I had a hard time, like the first time watching it, is like, this is Nightmare on Elm Street, right? This is like, and it was because it's just different enough. It's like, it's similar enough. It's like, it's, the word I'm going to keep using is homage, but it's similar enough to be like, yes, I get all these, Nightmare on Elm Street vibes. This is Nightmare on Elm Street. But it's different enough. And then like rewatching it, I'm realizing, oh, they did a thing. They did a reference to not a reference, but just again paying homage to these things in season 1. But it was just like this one shot, and it wasn't even, it was the, where Johnny Depp is up on the ceiling in the first A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yes.
Right, but his death scene. So there was a shot that was like that, but it had nothing to do with it was not anyone's death scene, but it was shot in such a way, and that made me think that, and I was like, I know that's what they were thinking when they did this. So, but it's got a number of 80s actors. Winona Ryder is part of the main cast. was trying to think who else from the 80s was in there. Paul Reiser's in it. Sean Astin is in it. Linda Hamilton is in it. So, yeah, it's an excellent show.
Yeah, I might have to move it up the list a little bit. It's not a good show, but I guess I shouldn't say it's not good. It's not anything
There's
groundbreaking.
good versus fun.
But I've been watching Van Helsing when I row, the more modern take that Netflix released. That's
I didn't know they did that.
I still haven't decided exactly what I think about it, and I'm like 3 seasons in, so it's been interesting. But I know, like we've talked about it before, I have a bit of a soft spot for anything vampire related anyway.
Same.
And so I've enjoyed just trying to kind of follow the roller coaster of where it's going to go. And it's something that I don't have to pay a lot of attention to from the rowing perspective. So if I miss something, it's like, whatever.
Well, I was going to say, when you do decide to watch Stranger Things, do pay attention to it, because there's so much going on there, and it's all a buzz right now. So the reason I brought it up initially was because while I do love the Netflix drop every episode in the same day, and that's what they did for season 1, 2, and 3, I think. That it was like all of them released on the same day, and you can watch them at your heart's content. They didn't do that with season 4, but it was I think the longest gap they had for like some episode was maybe a month, but I can't remember it. But this season, they're in their final season. The first 4 episodes, so part 1 was released Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and at like 8 Eastern, and Netflix servers crashed. I don't remember. I know Squid Game was their most watched show, and I don't know that I ever heard that that they crashed the servers. But the second part of season 5 is coming out Christmas Day. Again, 3 episodes will be released at 8 Eastern, and then the final episode will be on New Year's Eve. And they're even going so far as full, because it's a 2-hour episode, and it's going to be available in select movie theaters around the country.
That's a neat approach.
Yeah, so I got tickets to go see the last episode on, and it was interesting. AMC, they're not charging money for watching the movie. It's you are paying for a $20 concessions credit.
Huh, that's a different take.
Yeah, so you're not paying anything for the movie. Netflix has it there. I mean, and I'm sure there's some amount of movie that AMC is paying Netflix to. I don't know. I have no idea. I'd love to hear some, the layperson's details about how that. But yeah, it was a $20 concession credit. So, which is fine, because that's going to be dinner, because it's I chose one of the locations that has the full kitchen and the recliner seats.
I still have not been to one of those.
I didn't realize this, but they converted the one at the Summit used to be one of the I remember when it was like one of the best places to go in Birmingham 25 years ago. I saw Shrek there, and then I remember when it was the worst one or the oldest one to go to. I say worst, but it's like it was like the one. It's the last one that was renovated, but now it's one that has the recliners.
Nice. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I didn't either because like somebody was saying, let's go to the one at the Summit. And I was like, nope, don't want to go to that one. I want to go to the one in Vestavia because they have the recliners. And then I looked and I saw, because the Vestavia didn't have. I said I'd rather go to Patton Creek than the Summit, but then I saw that the Summit actually has the reclining seats. So
it'd be nice if, I know Patton Creek is relatively new, but it'd be nice if they redo it for the reclining seats and everything.
Yeah.
It would, because of its proximity to me now, it would be one that would actually entice me to go watch a movie occasionally. Though, to be fair, the one in Vestavia is not far from me now either.
No, it's not. No.
So
That used to be the one. I remember when I switched when that one opened. It was Rave Motion Pictures, when it opened, and I remember that opened in maybe I was still in college because I remember seeing The Matrix there. But I remember in 2001, I remember going to the Summit because that was the one that seemed better. And I think the one Patton Creek was also a Rave Motion Pictures, and AMC bought that chain and rebranded to AMC. I remember going to see. I have a really fond memory of going to see Ocean's 12 at that one because a friend of mine had a friend that worked there, and he said, "Hey, you want to come see a movie?" And we're like, "Yeah, let's go see Ocean's 12." And he's like, "Yeah, just show up. I'll as long as there's seats, I'll get you tickets." And so we showed up. He gave us a bunch of tickets, and we walked in and got to go see the movie for free.
always fun.
It was pretty cool. That's the only time I ever got to do that. My ex-wife's brother, when he lived in New York, he didn't live far from us. He went to the Lowe's, the big Lowe's in New York, I think. And he and his buddy were like, "Let's go watch a movie." And they spent the whole Saturday, like a whole Saturday watching, like a rainy, cold Saturday watching movies. They bought a ticket for one movie, didn't see it, and watched 5 movies without buying any tickets. I'm like, that is perfect.
There are certainly some theaters where it's easier to do that than others.
Yes, indeed. And it can't be like a super, a very popular movie. Like, you couldn't have done that with Lord of the Rings.
Right.
Because every seat was taken. I never got to my point about Stranger Things, and that was that I liked... Becca hated it because she doesn't like cliffhangers at all. And sometimes, if it was up to her, she would watch the entire show. She'd wait for the entire show to be available so that she can watch it at her pleasure, at her pace. Whereas I don't mind. Like, I know there's going to be cliffhangers. I like being able to talk about it. I like the social aspect of it, and I've really enjoyed this release schedule for Stranger Things because it's not protracted. It's it's slightly more than a month for the season to be released. Whereas the final season of Breaking Bad, there was 1 year between part 1 and part 2 of the last season. I'm like, that's really a 6th season. So don't give me your part 1, part 2. That's a 6th season. As far as storytelling goes, it's 1 season, but as far as you're releasing it, that is 2 seasons. I didn't like that, but I like the social aspect of it. I've enjoyed, I've had to catch up because social media started being flooded with a lot of Stranger Things content, and I didn't want spoilers. And so now that I've gotten through the first part, I've really enjoyed seeing the social media posts. Like, there's been there's been so many posts about Easter eggs and so many things where it's like, hey, what's this? I think the only thing that I might give, I learned a new term called Ret-Con, and I'm trying to remember exactly what it, retroactive continuity. Have you heard this?
I don't think I've ever heard it. Like,
the term?
Well, I've heard of retconning things, and it's always generally shortened like that. And I was just trying to think if I've ever heard anyone say what retcon actually stood for.
So I looked it up. It's retroactive continuity, and in the case, and this is not a spoiler. One of the characters in the show is maybe 3 years older than they should be, because the timeline is 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, and they're 2 years older than they should be for season 5, as far as how old they were versus seasons 1 through 4, or technically seasons 1 and 2. I don't think that this character showed up in 3 or 4.
I wonder, there must be multiple definitions for it, only because, or just general misuse by the populace, which would probably be more likely, because often retconning is used to negate certain installments of something as well. For example, there's been recent talk of Disney potentially doing something to release a different sequel trilogy to the original Star Wars trilogy, which would, in essence, retcon the original, or the episode 7, 8, and 9, for ease of saying it. So if they were to release a different 7, 8, and 9, that would... The verbiage, the way it's used, is that it would retcon the current 7, 8, and 9.
I think that's appropriate.
And could be. Like, when I think of...
It's not quite retroactive continuity. But.
Right. Like, that's where was kind of going with it, is that I would think of it as, oh, we need to fix this plot hole, and we can explain it this way. Or, some other... addressing something in a way so that it makes sense, or...
Oh, we're going to make this character 2 years older in the last season, and so just pretend that she's 2 years older in seasons 1 and 2.
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of ways to do it, but
I think I feel like it's a term that is used much more broadly or loosely than the actual words would suggest.
Yeah, I would expect so, and it's probably just because it's grown. Like, there was probably well, we do it this way, or we do it this way, or at some point it was you know what, we released this particular story, but we want to claim that was a work of fiction in the universe and release this story instead that's the actual one, kind of thing, like I could see it being done that way.
The worst retcon was Spider-Man 3, and the Sandman being Uncle Ben's murderer.
I don't know if I would say that's the worst one.
Okay, it's a bad one.
Yeah, it's definitely a bad one.
I was just being hyperbolic. I'm sorry.
Well, because of what we were talking, or because of where the conversation went, the one that kept coming to mind was Han shooting first.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah, that might be the worst. Oh my God! I just remembered. There's such a great homage to Terminator in season 3 of Stranger Things. They just had an actor who wasn't a kind of an assassin. Not even an assassin's the wrong word, but he looked enough like Arnold in the Terminator that you got like really good Terminator vibes. And then in the middle of that, one of the sets was what looked like Twin Pine or Lone Pine farm in Back to the Future. I mean, it's just like these things, just like it's not even trying to make it a part of the story. It's just like the set is like, it's like, hey, we need a farmhouse. Let's find a farmhouse that looks like the Twin Pine Lone Pine farm in Back to the Future, and it has nothing to do with the story. It's just they needed, it could have been any farm, but they like, we have to have one that looks like that one because we want to pay tribute.
I think that's when it's a nice touch. When it's something that
it's a nice touch.
Yeah.
The other thing is like, when you watch it, watch the transitions. Like from the very beginning, the Duffer Brothers are amazing with transitions, and they've talked about. I saw an interview where they talked about they said we're kind of obsessed with transitions, and we write them into the script so that we can make sure that directors have to do, because it's in the script, they have to do these transitions. And they're like, it's for the flow. It's not just to be cool, but it keeps up the flow. And it's just like, I'd noticed them before, but now that I'm paying attention to the transitions, like, they're so good. They're just so good.
Yeah, it definitely was one that I will eventually manage to watch. I probably will not. I don't know. I might be able to start it relatively soon. There's always the gap, typically speaking, when I'm awake and trying to figure out what I'm going to finish out for the evening or do for the evening. And recently it's been more productivity related, just because I'm trying to get some things done. But more often than not, it's like that's when I catch up on monologues or something else. And so if I'm already consuming content, why not just swap to a TV show?
Yeah, I don't think you'll be disappointed. It has a feel that I really enjoy, and it's funny where it needs to be funny. Um, yeah, I mean, I mean, it's really great xenial fodder, if I may, because if you watched movies that you probably have you have a place, like a fondness for something that came out before you were born. I mean, Star Wars is a good example. Actually, there's like 2 Star Wars movies that came out that were released before you were born. No. I see. That's where I'm messed up. I always think that Empire Strikes Back came out in 79, but it was 80, I think. Anyway, I was gonna say there's something. I'm not sure if I lost you.
No, I'm here. I was just waiting.
Yeah, no, I've
lost the train of thought.
Yeah, I got derailed a bit. I'm not sure why.
I know the reference was to fondness for stuff being released previous to.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
The main one that I can think of is Star Wars, but I'm sure there's other stuff too.
Or even things that are that would have been not. This is a period piece, but things that would have been. I'm having difficulty with what I'm trying to say. Would have been modern, E.T. has a there's a strong E.T. vibe. Not that there's like really. I mean, well, yeah, there is the kids on bicycles homage to E.T. that's pretty blatant. But I mean, just the look and the feel of the show, because it is 1983. E.T. was released in 1982. The clothing that they wear, it's all very good. And I hesitate to say accurate because I wasn't. While I was alive, I was a toddler,
right?
And so I don't exactly know. Like I couldn't say. By the time the 5th season's 1987, I can be like, yeah, I remember wearing those socks. I can remember wearing, making, I can remember. I told my kids, I was like, I did wear those things, but I was not making my own fashion choices. They were made for me, just And I can remember the questionable fashion choices I made in the 90s were always something that you could say, well, at least it wasn't the 80s.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of that, and the big hair and everything else. Like I remember many callbacks to, like at least this. It's not like what they wore in the 80s, and I remember the 70s being mentioned a lot of times too.
See, I feel like even the 70s is more forgivable.
In some, I think both have some areas where you would forgive, and then some areas where it's just horrid.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's. I think I've seen a number of. I've told my kids, I was like, season 3 is the season with the best hair, or the least atrocious hair. I was like, because it's like season 4 and 5. There's somebody who has a really bad perm, and I was like, I remember my friend's mom had that same style, and I was like, I remember thinking it was cool at the time. But, looking back, I was like, I'm trying to think of my most egregious. I think the most egregious fashion faux pas I committed as a teenager. It was as a teenager, and it was wasn't. I didn't even have. I wasn't even in a place where I was going to spend, if I had the money, was going to spend it on, or get my parents to spend it on Jinko jeans. But I had some, not quite as big, but some jeans in the neighborhood of Jinko jeans.
I never understood that choice.
I don't understand it either. The ones that I wore were they were in the style of Jinko jeans, but they were not bigger than bell bottoms. They weren't bell bottoms, but they weren't bigger than bell bottoms. So I'm not sure.
I did wear a lot of carpenter jeans around that time, though.
Oh, I remember the carpenter jeans. I remember being envious of the this is going to be so what is it when it's like, so carpenter jeans were made with a specific utilitarian purpose. And then you had Tommy Hilfiger make the carpenter jeans, and take, for example, the hammer loop with the little the red and white embroidered underneath. Like, I can see where they took jean fabric and folded it over and embroidered it, so you had this little red and white space exposed where the fabrics didn't meet, and you had their like sort of logo-esque thing in between there. And I remember thinking I really wanted a pair of those jeans. Until then, I just decided to go more of a punk look with the Jinko style jeans. But yeah, I do remember that. But I don't expect that any carpenters were wearing those jeans and putting hammers in those loops.
I would not expect so.
Yeah.
That was a nice little derailment.
Yeah. I felt like I still feel like there was something I'm trying to say and I didn't get there. But I definitely want to say that I feel like Disney does not have their priorities aligned with where I think they should be, because they need to, if they're gonna remake some, if they're gonna recanonize Star Wars, they need to start with the prequels.
Yeah,
and somehow keep the people they need to keep are Ewan McGregor, Natalie Portman, Sam Jackson.
I'm perfectly fine with Liam Neeson still being involved.
Liam Neeson.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I forgot about Liam Neeson.
And Ray Park.
Yeah. They had a great cast. George Lucas is just not a great director. And
the blurb that I saw, so I have not done much digging to know whether this was just kind of a random rumor thing or if there's any real meat to it. Because I also saw something where they were discussing the possibility of bringing Lucas back. And it's like, if you know anything about the universe, you know not to do that. Like if you were involved in any aspect of production, you know not to have him involved.
Is it? I don't know if he's alive anymore, but was it Irving Kershner or Gary Kurtz that they need to bring back?
Kershner, I think. I'd have to go back and look, but I think it was Kershner.
Yeah. Irving Kershner. He directed it. So, or how about a Quentin Tarantino? Even though he's become problematic these days.
I'm apparently not up to speed on my Tarantino trivia.
He's pulling a J.K. Rowling kind of.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, just make another movie. You were so clever until you opened your mouth.
I'm not entirely sure who I would really like to see direct something in the Star Wars universe. Like I kind of think...
You don't want a Quentin Tarantino Star Wars movie?
I would be okay with that. But like if I were to just think about directors in general at the moment, there's not one that jumps out at me as I absolutely want them to do one. There are plenty that I think would be fun or enjoyable. But I kind of think if they really want to redo any of the existing story, you've got to bring in fresh eyes. Anyone that is establishment or that's been around just isn't going to do it right. And they kind of did that with Rian Johnson, but then they decided that wasn't how they wanted to do things, which I think was probably the right call, because he didn't do a good job of taking me where he wanted to take me. But at least he had some interesting ideas, and it was novel for the universe.
I don't know which one he directed.
The Last Jedi, 8.
Okay. Is that... I had a problem with the blue milk.
I didn't really care.
It's really the only thing I know that if you said, "Oh, this was in that movie and that was in this movie," and I would be like, "Oh yeah, okay." I know what you're talking about, but I don't have it associated with the movie.
Yeah. My big problem with that film wasn't anything that they did specifically as much as it was they didn't sell me on the trajectory Luke took. Like, what we know of his character and the story arc that you had from the original trilogy, this was not the same character. And that's fine, but you got to get me there. You've got to bridge that gap. And they did not do so.
That could be part of why I don't remember things specific to that movie except for the blue milk.
Yeah, could be. Because it was the one where, essentially the storyline of he sensed darkness in his nephew, went to strike him down. It was the fire and everything else. And then he exiled himself, became a crybaby, essentially, again.
He was sulking.
Yeah.
But to be fair, with the Luke from Star Wars, that's what you would expect, right?
Not,
I mean, he sulked all through that movie. Like,
but
I just want to go to the Tashi station to get some power converters.
But you would have to go from A New Hope directly to Last Jedi. Like, his character changed with Empire and Return.
Apparently not lasting.
Yeah, I guess. And that's the reason, like, if you could give me enough to sell me on how the character that we knew at the end of Return became this version of the character again in some way, okay, that's fine. But
sorry, go ahead.
They failed to fill in the gaps.
Yeah. So it's filling in the gaps is important because I can think of a character in Stranger Things where you see in the timeline. I'm going to be really careful about how I present this so as not to give any spoilers. But you see in the timeline this character, something bad happened to them, and then you see them 3 months later in the timeline, and they seem fine, and then you see them 5 months after that, and they're not fine. But they provide plenty of information for you to understand how 3 months after this negative event, they seem fine, and then 5 months after that, they are dealing with depression. And there's, it's like it's like anyone who wants to say that I don't follow that in the timeline, I can roll all over them with the details that they have provided in that. And from what I can remember about The Last Jedi, it's, we saw him being a sulky teenager in episode 4, but why did the sulky teenagerness come back to him in episode 8 when he's a middle-aged man? I don't know, and I can understand, like, that's the problem. It's like, it could be believable if you gave me a reason to believe it.
Well, and on top of that, you layer in the, he specifically sought out someone who was supposed to be the embodiment of evil for the universe at the time, right? Thinking that there was a shred of redemption or a path to redemption. Why would that same theory not apply to someone who is arguably wiser and older and more capable of recognizing it in a nephew that by the end of the movies we know is capable of redemption as well? It just ignores too much without explaining. Because if you explain it, okay, fine. Like, I don't agree with your choices, but you at least got me along well enough to understand why these choices exist. Because I don't have to like the choices a character made. I just have to understand them.
Yes. And it's actually, I think it's nice to, it's nice when you have a character who's like, I hate that you're making these decisions, because it gets you thinking about decision making and like what would you do in that situation. But it's like, it's hard to have that. It's hard for that to happen when you don't get it. And to take a really bad movie where you're like, okay, I can understand his pain, but it's like, this is a great one to use, and that's Vertical Limit. That's like, would you cut the rope? Like I've thought about, like, would I cut the rope? Even though the movie is like, it is not low score on Rotten Tomatoes means that it's not a good movie, right?
Right.
It's probably got a low Rotten Tomatoes score, but I got enough from that scene to be, and that, it's an ongoing struggle this character has throughout the movie, but I got enough from the scene and from the rest of the movie, even though it's not great acting, it's not even a great story, that I do get this struggle. Like, they could have foobarred this part of the story, but they got it. They did get it, and it is something to think of. I almost said thought provoking, but it's not actually thought provoking. But
it's been a long time since I've watched it. I remember, or I know what you're talking about, but I don't remember so many details around it. Like I remember.
I mean, there's not even that many details, but it's.
And that may be why I'm struggling a little bit with it, because it's been way too long.
It's 25 years old, so I'm not, and it's not a great movie, so I'm not concerned. It's one that I enjoy watching from time to time, but it's not one that I'm concerned. Like, if you're upset about me, spoilers, email Jesse.
Yep, that's fine.
But and if you do email, we will absolutely be happy to discuss, even read the email aloud. Provided there's not anything inappropriate in there, and the F word is not inappropriate, in my opinion, but death threats are. Anyway, in the movie, beginning of the movie, because the movie makers couldn't think of a better way to present this, people are rock climbing, I think it's sandstone, and it's meant to be Monument Valley in Utah, Arizona border. And so we got 3 people trad climbing, a father and his son and daughter, and some amateurs at 12 o'clock. I'm like, straight up is 12 o'clock. I guess that's right. Anyway, they make a mistake. They fall, and in the process of them falling, they cause the dad and the son to fall, and they're all hanging on to the daughter's one remaining cam. And I really like Alex Hanold's take of this. GQ has a video of him watching that and critiquing the accuracy of the depiction. And I just remember him saying, this poor equipment manufacturer, people, that's it was Metolius. That's real equipment, and they're just like, it's not defamation, but they're just not presenting it in the way that it would actually work. It's like, that was a comment that he made that amused me, but he kept saying it was over the top, and so they're all hanging on by the rope, and the dad is telling his son to cut the rope because if he doesn't, there's too much weight. And his sister, because the concern is that the third cam was going to fail, which it's like, if you've placed your equipment correctly, they should have been fine, because all of the all of the dynamic forces had occurred.
Right.
They're just hanging there and it's static. And so that's part of why, execution of this depiction in the movie was really bad. Anyway, he cuts the rope and it kills his dad. That's the opening scene of the movie. And it's a theme where it's like, man, it's like, even though they got so much, even though they did such a bad job, it's like, yeah, I'm left to think, would I cut the rope? How would I do in that situation where I had, I felt like I had to cut the rope? Again, you watch it in those particular cases, the dynamic forces have been exerted. It's all static. They probably could have figured out something. It's just, bad execution. But I'm still thinking about would I cut the rope, because that's what they want you to think about.
Yeah, after you described it, I do remember the scene pretty well.
Yeah.
And I remembered it being something to that effect. I just did not remember all the surrounding information enough to be able to visualize it. But it's kind of the same question you get in a lot of movies. The whole aspect of what would, if you were in a situation where obviously anxiety is high, adrenaline's pumping, decision making is compromised.
There's an urgency, an extreme urgency,
right,
to make a decision.
And I mean,
a life or death decision.
And many movies pull it off well. And obviously, for for all its faults, this one pulled it off well for it to stick with you in that way.
Yep.
Yeah, it's always not to necessarily piggyback on the idea of the trolley problem, but it's just another version of that type of problem, right? Like, well, except in this case, you're playing an active role in whether you live or die as well, in theory.
Right. And so, just like I said, there's not a lot that's new in storytelling. It's just like, like I said about Stranger Things. There's not really anything new there, nothing groundbreaking in storytelling. But it's just like, it's just masterful storytelling. We have a number of different ways set up for you to get in touch with us to provide feedback, ask questions, or just comment in about something we've discussed.
You can hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at untitled_hosts, or shoot an email over to untitled.hosts@gmail.com.
Or get in touch directly with Jesse at jthart.com, or get in touch with me, John, via telepathy.
If you would like to support our work, or are interested in listening to our new after show feed, head over to patreon.com/theUntitledPodcast and take a look at the options we have set up.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you've enjoyed the show.
And we hope to connect with more of you as we continue this journey.
That's a wrap. I don't know that I have anything to follow that with. I think masterful storytelling is a good cut point too, though.
I think so too, and we can have the outro and then an after show. I added that after show topic. I'm glad that I know it's been here for a while, but I love that we have potential topics, and because we didn't get to either one of those.
Yeah, and I am perfectly fine with that.
Me too. This was a good conversation.
Yeah, and it's also the reason that I put potential when I first put the template together, because it's like, I don't know if I'm going to feel like talking about it, even if I put it in there.
That's right.
I do want to call out one quick thing that I think was interesting about the one that I dropped in. I forgot that iFixit had their original app pulled and their developer license suspended, which makes the presence of an app from them again of note. But that's all I actually planned to mention about that article.
So I was like, they have an app? I didn't, I knew that they didn't have an app for some amount of time, but I did not remember at all. Like, now that you said that, I was like, oh, there's no, I remember now, but I was never going to recall that. So, yeah. And if you'd asked me that, did they ever have an app? I'm like, no, they never had an app.
I was the same way. And then when I saw the article, I was like, well, why is this newsworthy? And so that's what made me click on it.
Yep. That makes so much more sense.
But that's all I have actually had to say about it. So
yeah, they're back in the App Store.
Yep.
Cool.
So Mangione.
Yeah. So I got some things that came across my social media feed, and I was like, it's one of those things where it's like, I like this account. I'm trying to remember what the name of the account is. Classwar.news. And so it's far left-leaning social media account. So whenever I see something in here, I go through and I fact-check it. And just because I don't want to spread misinformation. And what I saw was, Mangino's back in court, and his. I find this really interesting, and it may not be. It was news. It was new for me, but it may be, well understood. But his lawyers are trying to get some pretty important evidence thrown out of the case. Basically, they're trying to get the handgun, the suppressor, and the notebook thrown out because, so this is something that I've gone back and I've fact checked with more centrist news sources like ABC News and the Wall Street Journal. So centrist, slightly left, centrist, well, I don't know. Is the Wall Street Journal more than slightly right? I gave you sources. You can be the judge of that. Anyway, they want to throw those out as evidence for the case because, or I'll back up a little bit. When Mangione was arrested in Pennsylvania at the McDonald's, they searched his backpack because there was a concern of a bomb threat. I don't remember why there was a concern of the bomb threat, but there was a concern. And the officer that searched his backpack found some handgun magazines with unused rounds in them, or unused ammunition in it, wrapped in underwear. So it's kind of, to obscure them. And they did not find the pistol or the suppressor or the notebook in that search. That search was also done, they're trying to get some of that thrown out because that search was done without a warrant. They are also trying to get some of the things that he said thrown out, like that they asked him if he had recently visited New York, and I think he confirmed that he had, and they're trying to get that thrown out because it was that was a question and answer that occurred before his Miranda rights were read to him. So that was interesting. But the thing that I find really interesting is about the gun, the gun and the suppressor and notebook were found in a second search at the police station. And the officer that confiscated the backpack and brought it transported it from McDonald's to the police station was the last person to arrive at the police station. And she took a couple minutes longer than it was expected to take. And she turned off her body cam for 11 minutes during that. And there's a 2-minute moment where she stopped. And there's 2 minutes where another officer met up with her. And then she resumed her course back to the police station. And it was after that they found the gun, the suppressor, and the notebook. And so Mangione's lawyers trying to get those thrown out of the evidence because the handling of evidence and is questionable because of that. The body cam being turned off, the 2-minute stop, and so forth, and the additional officer.
But also, it's been a while since, and to be fair, I've never gone through police officer standardized training either. But educational background does include an emphasis in like law enforcement administration and everything. So I've had exposure to certain things, at least, which is just to set the precursor to it. From what I remember, it violates the chain of custody for evidence if it wasn't sealed and the seal's confirmed not broken with transport from where it was found to the station as well. And so if there's any doubt on that, then yeah, it's perfectly reasonable.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was the Wall Street Journal or ABC News, but and I think this was about the initial search without a warrant, and the officer said, "I didn't know that I needed one."
I can kind of understand that statement because if you feel like you have reasonable cause, there's a lot of gray area there, or at least there. In the jurisdictions that I know of, I put it that way, there's a lot of gray area there. And so if there was a concern of a bomb threat and there was a search related to a concern of a bomb threat, that would be reasonable doubt or reasonable cause.
But if you had reasonable cause, why would your answer be, I didn't know that I needed one?
Because at that point you didn't need one.
Right. But the answer to the question should be, I had reasonable cause to search his backpack. And this was my reasonable cause, not I didn't know I needed to have a search warrant.
Well, I think that's just the stupidity of a somewhat uneducated law enforcement officer.
She's a 19-year veteran.
It doesn't change my. There is a reason that law enforcement has historically drawn a certain level of lesser educated individuals into its ranks.
Oh, I know exactly why. It's the same reason we don't pay teachers enough.
Yeah.
We don't pay law enforcement officers enough either, and we don't educate them enough, and we don't require enough of them because it's harder to control people who are educated.
But with that, I can understand it being a more flippant, well, I didn't know I needed one as a response instead of, well, I had probable cause. You know what I mean? Like that to me is more of a personality quirk kind of flippant answer taken as a literal, like stating it calmly thing. And maybe I'm completely wrong, but like hearing
No,
it,
no, no.
that's my thought process.
I can hear. I can imagine a context of that, but I feel like this is such. It's like the gravity of that question, no matter the context, whether it is under oath, on the stand under oath, talking to your superior officer, or your superior in the police office. I can't understand why you would ever give an answer that is not the same that you would next to a judge on the stand under oath from a lawyer, a defense lawyer questioning you. I don't know how you wouldn't give that type of answer in any other context.
Yeah, I could still see it. Like and it may just be general exposure to more officers and their personalities overall.
Well, that's a what's the word I'm looking for? It's more than pride.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything. I think so. There's an interesting psychological phenomenon with anybody in emergency services that you'll encounter as well, where certain personality traits just kind of exhibit themselves in certain situations as a way of handling or dealing with heightened emotion, for better or worse. And the ability to regulate that is lessened in environments where like candid banter is allowed or kind of encouraged as a method for releasing steam. And so your brain is more likely to respond with that kind of flippant response, not recognizing the potential damage from an environmental perspective, as opposed to environments where it's all very much professional tone, professional appearance, presentation. Like, there are other ways to alleviate that stress or to cope with the heightened emotions than to allow the hazing or flippantness or anything else like that. And so I think it's just a combination of probably that officer's personality and that department's culture that led to, honestly, stupidity in response. And it may be worse than that. It may be very much an outlier where this particular officer's saying things in a way that is not necessarily reminiscent of that department or agency's, general approach and presentation and everything else. But that's just how it reads to me at completely removed from it, seeing what I've seen over the years type thing.
I'm not sure how to respond to that.
I don't know that there's, it's all hypothetical from my perspective at this point anyway.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I don't know that there's a reason to necessarily respond. It's just it's just me trying to say I can explain a way that I can read it as
no. I think it's a good
or yeah, not fine, but as like I get how it got there, I guess is.
No. It's a good, and I think it's an accurate explanation. I made a comment to myself. It's like, this is not Jesse's position. He's just putting this out there. This is, just characterizing the situation.
Yeah, like it's still an absolutely horrible thing to say as a person in law enforcement. Yes.
Well, it's an incredibly stupid thing to say as well.
Right.
But there's a reason why there's a song called "Fuck the Police."
Well, and it also goes hand in hand with a lot of the other problems that we've seen, like even locally.
Yes,
I know local officers often will say, "Hey, I need to see your ID for something," when technically they do not have a right to do so. And when confronted by it, they will back down. It's just there's a reliance on you not knowing your rights to effectively get you to agree to something that you shouldn't.
Also, providing deference where it's not earned.
Right.
White people have a very different relationship with the police. I was trying to explain this to my friend Dave. You know, when we're hanging out, he's like, "Dude, what is it with black people and police?" I'm like, "It's not that black people don't like the police or hate the police. It's just that we have a tumultuous history with the police." One day we're driving on the highway, and the police car pulled up behind us, and I got tense. I just got really tense, and he's like, "Dude, what's going on?" I said, "The police are behind us." And he was like, "Yeah, and did you do anything wrong?" I said, "That's not the point." Because it really isn't. For white people, that is the point. The police will send you to jail if you do something wrong. As a black person, you have a different relationship. The police may send you to jail just because. I know this because I was driving. I got pulled over by the police for the first time in my life in America. And already I'm not very comfortable when driving in the United States, you know. Not because of the other side of the road, but because of the other side of the car. I'm not used to that. You know, I always get into the car on the wrong side. I'll be shopping, and I'll come back to my car confidently, and I'll jump inside and put the things down, and then I'm like, ah. And then instead of getting out, I sit there. I always just sit there. Because I always think somebody's watching me, so I just sit there. And I act like I planned it all. Like, where is my driver? Where is my driver? He should have been here by now. Where is my... Oh, well, I guess I'll drive myself. I don't know why I do that. I'm not comfortable. But you have to drive in Los Angeles. So I had a little rental car, and I'm driving on the freeway, and this police car pulls up behind me. And he drives behind me for a little bit, and then he flashes his lights. And I was like, oh, he probably wants to go past. And so I moved over to the middle lane, and then he came with me. And he flashed his lights again, and I was like, oh, come on, just go past me, man. Just go past me. And I went back to the fast lane. He came back with me, and he was the flashlight, and this time he's like, whoop, 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 whoop. And I was like, yeah, go past. You keep doing with me, go past. Because I didn't think he was stopping me. I thought it was basically the vehicular equivalent of that moment on the sidewalk when you both don't know which way to go. I thought we were doing that with our cars, like, I thought that was happening. And clearly he thought that I was evading him in the most polite manner ever. Because he gets irritated and he's like, pull on the side of the road, pull on the side of the road. Now, I couldn't hear what the hell he was saying. I'm not gonna, which I think is part of the problem. I don't think it's fair that police have speakers on their cars and we don't. I think this is a recipe for disaster. That's the first step in mending relationships, is communication, people. I don't know what the hell that guy was saying, but I couldn't tell him. He was like, pull on the side of the road, if I had a speaker, I would have had the ability to be like, sir, I cannot hear what you're saying. Enunciate your words, please. Enunciate your words. Speak clearly. I said, pull on the side of the road. No, use your words, buddy. Use your words. Talk to me. Talk to me. What do you need? Pull over. I'll be like, okay, I will be pulling over right now. Thank you very much. Like, it would be more effective. But I didn't know, so he's like, pull over. I'm like, I don't know what the hell you want to do. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, pull over. And I panicked, and so I stopped. I pulled over right there where I was on the freeway, which apparently you're not supposed to do. I didn't know this, because I just know that police tell me to do something, I do it. So he said, pull over, and then I stopped. And then he was like, don't pull over there. Then I was like, well, you should have been more specific. You can't tell me to pull over, and then tell me to not pull over. You should have said pull over at a time that is more appropriate. You can't just tell. Now I'm panicking. He's like, get back into the road. I'm like, this guy does not know what he wants. I'm going back. Now I'm back in the road. And then he's like, take the next exit. And now we're driving. And now he's guiding me along. It's like I had a really angry GPS. It was the weirdest thing ever. And so like he's driving me like, make a right at the lights, make a right. It's like I chose angry cop on my ways. That's what it felt like. He's like, turn left. Oh, no, I said left, turn left. No, recalculating. When it is safe, maybe.